Thanks, Buhle. The ANC conference in KwaZulu-Natal kicks off its regional elective conference to elect new leaders this weekend. Corruption accused and former eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede, who stepped aside from her duties as party member because of corruption charges, will go up against ANC eThekwini regional chairperson Thabani Nyawose for the position of chairperson. Now, Gumede is currently facing alleged fraud, corruption and money laundering charges linked to a multi-million rand waste collection tender with 17 co-accused. Will this affect her running for the position? For more on this, we speak to political analyst Dr. Zamo Mbandlwa. Very good morning to you, Dr. Mbandlwa. Thank you for your time. What is it looking like for corruption-accused Zandile Gumede? Because we also know that looking at her track record in terms of performance, the party itself was not happy with how she performed and recalled her. What are the chances looking like, especially also considering the loopholes in the step-aside rule?
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me to your show. But first we must look at what the ANC says about its own nomination processes. Because the ANC members can nominate and they can be nominated. And in this particular case, if a person is a member of the organization, that particular individual can be nominated. So currently, the dynamics are very strange because there is a rule, there is a step-aside rule on the other side. And on the other side, there are political and organizational processes of the ANC. So, which then allows members to be nominated and be elected if supported. Yes.
What state does the ANC find itself in, especially looking at the dynamics in eThekwini? I mean, is the region, are they still the kingmakers when it comes to performance and going ahead, you know, as the ones with a lot of support?
Look, the ANC is still the kingmakers, but the major problem now is we know ANC eThekwini region is the biggest region in the country. But looking at the dynamics now, they are very strange because you have both factions of support, and what is more interesting is that both factions are claiming to have a majority support before the conference, because the conference will take a decision today, who then becomes the chairperson and the other office bearers and the entire structure. But at this point, both factions are claiming having to have the majority. So that tells you that none of us will know exactly what will happen, because if you look at the support, both factions have support. The other faction of Mr. Nyawose have the support of other structures of the ANC. On the other side, if you look at the faction of Zandile, they still have a control of ward councillors. And if you look at how she have managed to gain a support on the ground, you can tell that is why among themselves, those who are supporting her, they don't see any among them who can lead the ANC in the region, but they still consider her as the leader, despite the allegations and the court cases that she's currently attending. On the other hand, of Mr. Nyawose, we have a different caliber of leaders and supporters who actually believe that she can bring a change in the eThekwini region. And these dynamics are not starting now towards the conference. But if you look at what has transpired during the local government elections, you can tell that the ANC on the ground, because of its own divisions among the leadership preferences, they are not gaining a support. That's why they even lost the eThekwini. And the loss of ANC in eThekwini is a problem, because it means that looking at the dynamics currently, they will still have challenges on the ground, because the main problem is the faction that win the take leadership positions then become enemies with those who are not in support of them. And these dynamics are not only found in the leadership, but even on the ground, delegates themselves, branches, the divisions are very huge, in such a way that you remember eThekwini is a region that is characterized by many assassinations. And these assassinations are not mushrooming from nowhere. These are the assassinations that are caused by disparities in the leadership, which then go down to the membership of the ANC and subsequently also affect the popular support of citizens in the region. And that alone will then mean that going forward, people on the ground are very different. They are very divided in terms of who they are supporting in the region, in the province, and in the national. And if you look at the dynamics of eThekwini region currently from both factions, none of these factions have pronounced the leader of the province. Since we are also going to prepare they are also going to prepare for the provincial congress. So, despite them not having the leadership preferences in the province, then it becomes a problem now in the province to say who exactly are they supporting amongst the two factions. But to remember that we currently have a task team. And what then determines the leadership of the region will be based on the assessment made by the task team. And the faction that have the majority members in the task team is likely to gain the momentum, because remember, the task team is also responsible for the processes, the nomination processes on the ground, the branch nomination processes, but we cannot just rule out that those who have a majority in the regional task team will win the conference. So the conference at this point, and yesterday there was also a problem of the representation of the leagues of the ANC. Mm-hmm. You know, when the ANC hold its own conferences, they allow the youth league and they allow women's league to be part of the conference. But at this point, there was a dispute in terms of the representation of these leagues. And this is only happening in eThekwini because the province have already had 5 regional conferences. And in all these regional conferences, the leagues were allowed to participate in the conference. So it's very interesting to see how the National Executive Committee will attend to the issue of the dispute of the representation of the leagues, the ANC Youth League and the ANC Women's League.
Absolutely. Now, we know that the ANC has been speaking about unity, renewal, ridding the party of corruption with a candidate such as Zandile Gumede. What does this now boil down to when it comes to the message that the ANC is trying to send and a party that's trying to safeguard its image?
You see, the issue of the ethical leadership or the leaders of the ANC is very broad, because first and foremost, the ANC have to go to the ground and assess the dynamics on the ground, on the citizens of the region, to look at what really people want on the ground. And regardless, you can have ethical leaders in any positions of the ANC. But if the needs of the people on the ground are not attended, you will never receive a popular support on the ground. So you can have leaders that are providing good leadership. But if the needs of the people, if there is no employment opportunities for the people, you know, people can even compromise their souls if their needs are being addressed. So that is why the issue of the ethics at this point must go hand in hand with the public service delivery. And the leadership that will be elected here will have to go back to the ground and assess the dynamics on the ground, what really people want on the ground, and how they can improve the economy, how they can assist people that are living in poverty in the region. And what also is very interesting is the support, because remember, the ANC at this point did not have money to pay the employees. It's really interesting how these conferences are being funded, who are behind these conferences. In both factions, it should be very interesting to see who is actually behind these factions, who is actually funding the processes, who is actually funding these gatherings, who is actually funding, who is supporting delegates. So it will be very interesting to see, and what is it for them, what they want to see, because even ethical leaders, if you are ethical, but if people have been supporting you, giving you funding during the uprunning of the Congress, then you have no choice, but you have to the payback time will always come. When you are ascending to the leadership position, you will have to pay those who have been supporting you financially. Because really, I don't believe there is any business person who can just decide to fund the Congress without expecting anything in return. We know the business motive. Their motive is to get profit.
Could then there be a situation where there's a disjuncture now, disjuncture between what party members want and what people on the ground want, especially as we're speaking about a candidate who could emerge victorious irrespective of her own party recalling her for failing to deliver the services needed for the people?
You see, the main problem is in the ANC, there are people who are called chief lobbyists, and recently they've been calling it a conference economy. These people have more power in terms of controlling the membership on the ground, delegates on the ground, and you know, this thing is coming from up to bottom. So those who are chief lobbyists, who have resources to mobilize the members on the ground, they also influence members on the ground to influence the community. So that's why even the assessment, if I look at the assessment of the local government elections, it tells me that if you look at the divisions within the ANC, it have a huge impact on the ground, because members that were disgruntled, that were not happy about the ANC, were able to influence members on the ground, and they were also able to influence voters on the ground. So people decided not to vote, not because they don't like the ANC, but because of the divisions within the ANC, they decided to hold their power of voting. And I see this even happening in the national government elections. You know, these divisions that are happening in the ANC, they are very huge. They have a huge impact in the economy and in the stability of the country. So we are yet to see another possible coalition government, because you know, the people on the ground, they are not happy about the fight of the ANC. And members of the ANC and leaders of the ANC are in the forefront to try to divide and to destabilize the movement on the ground. So the situation is still not going to be laid to rest. But also, what I would also want to mention here is that historically, the ANC has been the organization that relied on the upper structures to provide leadership. In the past, when there are divisions like this in the ANC in the region, you will have leaders in the national and in the province who come to the region and say, you cannot contest this particular individual. This is the time of this leader to lead. So you must wait, your time will come. But we don't see that happening in the ANC of today, because even the top structures from the national and the province, they have their own interests, their own preferences in the region, in regions of the ANC. So then it becomes a problem, because no one is able to be listened to by both factions. And in the past, it was very easy, because when they used to call them umuntu omkhulu, they say, you know, umuntu omkhulu sekhulumile, we can't contest each other. You must allow this leader to take the leadership position, and in the next term, you are going to lead. So, but you don't see that happening anymore in the ANC.
Dr. Mbandlwa, if you'll allow me to just interrupt you, I mean, let's now try and assess the impact of this conference on the local government elections. How much of a factor would the election outcome be on how delegates vote for a new leader?
You see, the problem now is the ANC members need each other more than before in the region. And these divisions are also going to cause problems in the leadership of the local government. Because remember, you already have ward councillors who are still fresh, who have been elected last year. And the leadership of the ANC in the region will then mean that they have an upper hand of the decisions that are being made in the council. So now, if you have the majority in the regional leadership which does not agree with the council, you will have decisions that are being made by the opposition parties who are going to work with members of the ANC or councillors of the ANC in the region, just to make sure that decisions of the region are not taken into consideration. So this is going to go either way, either faction If the faction of Mr. Nyawose or the faction of Mam Zandile win, I see this happening in the region. And the stability of the council is going to be affecting all citizens in the region, and it's also going to destabilize the economy.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time and that very thorough analysis. Political analyst Dr. Zamo Mbandlwa speaking to the dynamics in KZN as the conferences, the ANC eThekwini conference is well underway. We will, of course, be bringing you some of the developments on the ground in that region.